Welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast, a production from Empowering Pumps and Equipment as the voice of the pump and related equipment industry. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Empowering Industry Podcast. I'm your host, Charli Matthews, and I am yet again excited to be here with a special guest. This one is actually extra special. I've known him for a while in several different businesses that we've worked together, and not like he bought from me. That wasn't the relationship there, but he's always been involved there from engineering to marketing, et cetera. So I'm just excited to bring him to the audience, you guys. And thank you for being here every Monday, and make sure, of course, that you like and subscribe and do all that fun stuff where we show up in your feed. So without further delay, Cameron, join the stage and tell everybody about yourself.
Sure. So I guess first of all, thank you very much for having me. My name is Cameron Rapoport. I am currently the business development manager for the Eastern region for the Detection Group, a Watts brand.
Tell us about the Detection Group. What is that? I mean, I've worked with Watts. They're one of our players, and partners in the past there on empowering pumps and also empowering women in industry. But tell us a little bit more about what you're doing there.
Sure. So how I got here was I've been working with Watts for almost 6 years now. And one of the things that we've really been focused on is smart and connected products. Everybody is talking about IoT and they want sensors on everything. And how can we get more data and leverage more data? And of course, it's something that we as a company have been very aware of. Our CEO talks about it in our earnings calls. So when we acquired this company, the Detection Group, out of California, I saw it really aligning with those goals. I thought it'd be a cool place to be. So what we do here is we make large scale leak detection systems for commercial buildings. So you might be familiar with, in your basement, at your boiler or your hot water heater, just on the ground somewhere, you might have some sort of sensor where if it gets wet, something happens, right? Either it beeps at you because it's sitting in the pan of your water heater and your water heater is going to go eventually. Maybe it closes a valve. Maybe you have a flow meter on your home, so you can watch for flow. And if, it's going out of control, maybe you have a leak, you can shut your water supply down, all that kind of stuff. We do that, but at scale for a building. So if you're a 1.5 million square foot class A office tower and you need hundreds of points or thousands of points instead of 3 in your basement, we do that, and we're part of that IoT connected product ecosystem.
I love it. Well, so that tells me a little bit about what you do today. And I have to say, I feel like people need a little background about how you got here. And so I always ask this of how you got into the industry, but I know a little bit about your how you got to this point. But let's go way back. Why engineering?
Sure. I was always a math and science kid, right? So if you're a math and science kid, you gravitate to either hard science or engineering typically. And I gravitated towards engineering because I wanted to build things. I think there's a ton of value in science, and it's still really interesting. But at the end of the day, you're not sure if at the end of the day you're going to have a thing you can hold and say, "Hey, look at this thing I made. Let's use it to do something." Sometimes you're plugging away. You say, "Hey, look at this thing that we learned was impossible." So I went into engineering because I wanted to make stuff. I started out as a chemical engineer in college. Didn't love that. As soon as organic chemistry hit, I was kind of said, anything that makes me do this, I want out. I pivoted over to mechanical engineering, and that was a much better fit. And I got to, make stuff and learn how the world works.
Yes. And so what was that first job out of school, out of college?
Yeah, and this is probably around when we met. You've been around my whole career.
I
I
told everybody I knew,
Yeah.
but I didn't want to say, I don't want to, claim ages here.
um sure, yeah. So I went to work for a company called AW Chesterton in Groveland, Massachusetts. They make a bunch of things. Their big things are pump and valve seals. They do some static seals and hydraulic seals, and they have some specialty compounds and things like that. But I was on a field engineering team working with our customers to optimize sealing solutions for their processes, which basically meant I was counting pumps at paper mills,
Mhm.
um, which was a really fun first job. I don't know how much of your audience has ever been to a paper mill. They're mostly known for smelling really bad. Um, they typically put them pretty far away from everything else because of it. But if you're within, 10,
Which
15
is
miles.
why they need seals, and which is why I'm sure that those seals were important.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So but it was cool because I got to not just learn the nuances of how a mechanical seal works, but I got to learn about, pumps and pumping systems and the paper mill as a whole, and uh, get really into the kind of application engineering side of, here's this pump, here's where it sits in the process, here are the problems that it's going to have. What can we do to make it better for the customer?
And then you moved from there.
And then I moved from there. So I went from engineering to product management at the same company, working on packing. So the original, or one of the older pump sealing technology, making greasy rope. But that was also really fun, right? A lot of the same customers, but also petrochemical, doing low emission sealing. And it was great because the sitting in product management, product management can mean a lot of things to a lot of different companies, but you get a lot of exposure to everything. From You're doing a lot of sales enablement, because at the end of the day, right, you're relying on them for feedback and relying on them to make you successful because you measured on, sales of your products. You work with marketing on everything. You're going to all the trade shows. You're a key component of the new product development process. So you're in those, sprint meetings, provide as the kind of interface between engineering and the customer to make sure that we're getting the right features and that we're matching a product to a problem a real customer has, and that we're going to do it at a price they're willing to pay at the end of the day. So that was really fun time. I really enjoyed product management. And then I moved from AW Chesterton over to Watts Water Technologies, also to be, on a product management team for backflow preventers. And that was really about kind of seeing something new. Went from a little family-owned, relatively small, privately held company, to this big, publicly traded company selling something where, we're moving many thousands of units every year. Right, I had, I think, 10,000 SKUs in my product line, and just seeing how it was different. But it was a lot of the same stuff, right? You're doing marketing, you're talking to sales all the time, you're working directly with customers, you're doing training. I had to, yeah.
Specifically on that product, you had to kind of know all there was to know about backflow. I mean, like I could ask you any questions about, the backflow preventers, and you would be able to kind of give us a presentation, for lack of better words, on that.
Yeah, I'm a big dork.
Yeah, so
And
he's full of knowledge. That's what he means.
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
sometimes to my detriment, I really want to know the nitty gritty. I tend to get into the weeds.
Yes, which we like that in our engineering people. But then today it's a little different. It's a shift, and you've moved into this business development role, but with a technical product. And so that's how we got here today. And I think it's really important. And I've talked to a lot of people in I mean, over the podcast, obviously, but that share that part of like how they got into the industry and then, using all the things that you've learned into your current job, right? So many different tasks that you've been a part of that, how can you be in face-to-face interactions with people today, right? Which is a lot of your job. And, what did you learn from all the technical side or the, just managing all these different tasks together? What do you think? What do you think that, I guess has brought you to this place?
Yeah, I mean, so being in sales, which is really what I do in business development, at least in this business development role. Part of it was just because I think I wanted to see what it was like at the tip of the spear, right? At the end of the day, every company relies on selling things, and for the most part, that is one person talking to another person. So I got here partly just because I wanted to see what that was like. I always enjoyed the customer interaction side of the different roles I had taken on. And as far as what I'm bringing to it, I'm not a salesperson selling to another salesperson, right? I'm selling to someone who is a property manager or a chief engineer or an asset manager. And I do really understand what it's like to manage a P&L. And I have a great product, right? The detection group makes a wonderful thing. Our customers only have so much money, right? There are a lot of good things that they could be doing with it. How do I speak their language to make them better understand why this is what they should be allocating their capital towards? So
Why is that?
It's about risk reduction at the end of the day is what we do, right? There's always going to be leaks. It's a $10 billion a year problem. The average water damage is $100,000. And it's going to happen everywhere. And if you talk to any seasoned, facilities manager or operations manager or property manager, they'll tell you that they have dealt with their fair number of leaks. So we're solving a real problem that's out there. But being able to go in and speak their language, right? You talk to a chief engineer and they want to talk about their chiller plant and how their HVAC system works and why they're mad that someone capped a black iron line with a galvanized cap and you got electrolytic corrosion and all that kind of stuff, right? But then you pivot over to a property manager and they might not know what any of that stuff is, or they have kind of a passing familiarity with it, and you want to talk about risk reduction and what managing their annual budgets, and how do they have to take this idea of, hey, I think we should do this and sell it up to an asset manager or to an owner, or figure out a way for their to sell it to their tenants because they want to make them pay for it at the end of the day, right? Mm-hmm. So having worn a lot of hats, I can speak to different kinds of customers and different people along that kind of value chain, all those decision makers.
So he's done engineering, sales, marketing, product management. And so all of that knowledge that you've gained over the career allows you to come in and speak to pretty much anybody and figure out and kind of help solve their problem. Even if you don't know the answer, you can be like, hey, let me figure this out for you, or talk to somebody else. So I love that. I love that about you. I think there's plenty there of why. I mean, what the diverse person, right? Like you have all these different qualities. I always like to think about like the sales engineer. And I remember the first time that somebody told me that, I'm like, is that possible? Like, are those two people is that multiple people in one? I don't understand. And so you have that, you're able to communicate with people and also have that like deep technical knowledge, which is really important. So he's a gift, y'all. I'm just giving y'all a gift here. So one thing that I do want to talk to you about, I mean, we have known each other for a long time, and you bring that fun and energy and excitement to the workplace. And the I like to call it the pump industry, right? That's what I'm in, but it is definitely expands outside of just the pump, and really how plants or buildings or just how we survive every day. But you come in contact with so many different people. So I'm curious about how you were able to be successful at you, like each of these organizations. You were successful there, and you were kind of leveling up as you went. What would you say is your, you know, helped you get to that success?
Uh, sure. I think a lot of it is just a curiosity, not just about what you're doing and how you can be doing it better, but about everyone on your team and what they're doing and what their problems are. Uh, in my positions, I've had to do a lot of managing by influence, right? So a lot of the people who have had to help make me successful don't work for me, right? I can't say, hey, I need you to do this by this time or else, right? Not that that's ever a great way to manage people, but they're not reporting to me. They have a lot of other things to do. So I think being curious about what it's like to sit in their shoes. What are the marketing people going through? Why are they usually frustrated when they deal with people like you, right?
Mhm.
When they've worked with other people in your position. Same thing with sales. Like what's important to them? When you rely on all of these other people to make you successful, which is most positions in a company, uh, when you learn about them, you learn how to make their job easier with a little effort on your side, and that really pays itself back in dividends. So, uh, most folks are part of a team, right? Be a team player. Um,
Yeah. I think we've seen that. I mean, I've seen that from you, as because I've worked with all these people that you were talking about as far as plants or our previous careers. What is the advice? So you're I'm going to call you a young professional, but you have plenty of knowledge there. What would you tell to people coming into the industry, like how to navigate?
God, how to navigate. Honestly, I think people are so willing to talk to you and will be very generous with your time if you are genuinely curious about what they do. Um, so if you're coming into the industry and you're wondering what's it like to go into marketing, what's it like as a leader of an engineering team, where are my options, where can I go from here? If you have if your company has like a real mentorship program or something where you can get into that, absolutely get into that. Right? Take advantage of that. If they don't, one, ask for it. And two, take it into your own hands. Find a mentor. If you can find one in your company and one outside of your company. At the end of the day, your career is up to you, right? To make it what you want. But people are usually very, very willing to help you out with that. So get out there and ask questions and network, find people who are excited about the same things that you are, and stay close to them.
That's really great advice. And I do have to, ask you one more question, like in the work realm here. As you go out and you're talking to people, and you're like, you don't know these, or straight out the gate. I mean, I think that you have the experience also as being an engineer. Is like, okay, now you're in the sales world. How do you just go out there and talk to people if that's something that you're not used to?
Uh, it's not always easy, right? I coming into this, I thought I'm a people person, and I've talked to a lot of customers, but a lot of that has been kind of on the tail end of the sales cycle, right? I'm getting brought in as an expert because someone who in sales has talked to this person and developed that relationship, and now they're more interested and they want to talk to someone technical. Um,
Which is a lot of, I would think this technical sales role experience, and then kind of going outside of that a little. I know that it can be a challenge. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Oh yeah. So I mean, there's a couple sides to that. There's the straight cold calling, right? I'm calling someone who's never heard of me, never heard of my company, uh, might initially think that I'm bothering them. I think there's a couple of things. One, you have to really believe that this person might need your help. Uh, I'm calling because I want to know if they have a problem that I can solve for them. And get that out of your mouth really quickly, right? Hey, I'm Cameron Rapoport. I'm calling from the detection group. We make large-scale wireless leak detection systems. We're FM approved. We're used by some other buildings that your company manages. Do you have any problems with water damage? And they might say no and hang up on you. And you'll get a lot of that. But they also might say yes. And so that's that side of things, like the cold calling side. And then there's the regular networking side of things, right? You show up to some industry event. And honestly, in those, I would say stop selling, right? The purpose of that is networking is not to make sales. People will get turned off by that. You're there to meet people. If you go up to someone, again, you're generally curious about, hey, what do you do? Oh, that's a cool building. What do you like about that? Or, what's it like working for that organization? Build the rapport. Eventually they'll ask you what you do, and you can say, I'm a sales guy. This is my product. But at that point, they'll tell you if they have a need or not. Right. You've already warmed them up. So, but yeah, I think the biggest thing is believing that you're not bothering people. You're really trying to help them.
Yes, I absolutely agree with that. And I think, building relationships, a lot of people stumble on that word networking a lot of the times. Just building relationships is really what sales is all about. I like to say I'm a salesperson at heart all the time. That's how I started my career. Even though I graduated in finance and business, I was just a salesperson trying to, sell advertising. And it was just about who I got to meet and how I could really help them, whether it was getting their product out where people can see it. Today, I like to share people's stories, right? So that's an easy, a lot easier, I think, than trying to convince somebody that marketing worked back in the day where we didn't have digital and we didn't have like metrics and things. So it's been wonderful to talk to you, Cameron. I'm going to do a little rapid fire because it's fun for me. And I'd like you to tell us all, what's your favorite book?
Oh man, well, I'm terrible at every sort of favorite question.
Good. Then you're going to love this series.
Yeah, this is going to be really hard for me. What's my favorite book? I really, a writer I turn to and I try to read new things by him is Haruki Murakami. He's a Japanese author. And part of the reason I'm really attracted to it is because his storytelling is very different from kind of Western storytelling. There's a lot of kind of magical realism, but also it's not as tightly wrapped up and neat. Right. The whole happy ending. Every loose thread is wrapped up. And he's got a book called Hard Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World that is really great and a lot of fun and has some great twists in it. So I'll go with that one.
Awesome. Okay. The next one I normally ask, but you have to tell about you in this one. Favorite music or band?
So I'm in a band. So I'm a fiddle player or violinist, depending if I'm trying to sound cool or sophisticated. We're called the Night Blinders. We're on Spotify. We're cutting in our third album in the studio right now. But other than that, I've pretty eclectic taste, right? I started as a classical musician. Still always got to say, Bach is the thing for me. But now, I'm listening to a lot more of the Americana, like drive-by truckers or the singer-songwriters like Jason Isbell and I still listen to a lot of Lizzo.
Well, wonderful, wonderful. And I think it's great. Every time that I can ask these questions, and you think you probably, okay, he's an engineer, that he's now a sales engineer. Okay. Okay. And then you bring out, that you play the violin or the fiddle or whatever. I think it's just great for people, because you just break down all the stereotypes. The other question I like to ask is, what is the best advice that you have ever received?
Oh man, what is the best advice? Um, a one kind of constant mentor has been around is one of our mutual dear friends, Ian Baines. Um, and when he's told me a whole bunch of things, all which have been good advice, starting from, when I took StrengthsFinder the first time, and he really leaned into.
I taught him that. I'm just saying.
I'm unsurprised. Um, playing to your strengths is so much easier than really banging your head against your weaknesses, right? Working on your weaknesses is great. It's absolutely something you should do. Um, but I think it's more effective and a lot more fulfilling and less frustrating to play to your strengths, recognize your weaknesses, surround you with people who will help you with those, right? Um, it's not alone. You're not alone. And the other one is just have a plan. Have a plan, write it down, look at it every day, take action on it. I wish I did that more.
Yes. Well, don't we all? And that is great advice. I'm going to push you a little bit further and give you I guess the stage. I don't know. What is some advice that you would give to a new person coming into our industry?
Um, I would say that there's something for everyone here, right? You might come in one place, and see, okay, here's the straight line I can follow, right? If you're an engineer, you're like, okay, I'm going to work my way up to a senior engineering role, and then I'm going to lead an engineering team, and then I'm going to be, whatever, a VP of engineering or a CTO or something like that. But I also think there are a lot of people who look at that and they either stall somewhere or they look farther down the line. They go, I don't want to do that. So what now? So I would say it's an awesome industry. There's a lot more diversity of what you can do here than you might initially think coming in. So to get back to my previous points, stay curious, look around, ask for opportunities to do something if you want to do it. If you're a junior engineer and you think, okay, I want to do product management, ask if you can sit in on meetings, see what it's like. Ask for a mentor, right, in the product management space. Ask them, hey, if in 2 years you have an opening, what do I have to do to look like a good candidate? And then go try that. If you don't like that, do it again, right? Go, hey, marketing looks cool, or hey, engineering was actually where I wanted to be, and do the same thing. But just look around, try different things out. You can find what you're looking for somewhere in the industry. There's a lot of cool stuff to do. There's a lot of great people.
Yeah, I agree with that. So much that you don't have to stay in the field that you graduated in or that somebody told you to be in. You can change things even within the companies. I love that there are ways to go both vertical and horizontal, if you will.
Yeah,
and it's a great place.
If you look around, you don't see anything what you that you want to do, you can be like Charli and just make it for yourself.
There you go. There you go. Create the table. I did it. Thank you, Cameron. It's been a joy as always. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, what's the best way to do that?
Oh man, I mean, LinkedIn is always easy, right? That's where we go for everything. My name's Cameron Rapoport, Rapoport, or I'm sure it's going to be in the notes or something on the podcast. I read all those messages. right? Shoot me a message. If you want to connect, shoot me a message. Don't just hit connect, because if I don't know you, I won't do anything about it. But say you heard me on Charli's podcast, and I'll be happy to talk.
I love that. And so share this podcast with others, everybody. I want to just share Cameron, like I said, the magic here, the gift that Cameron is to everybody, but also just storytelling is so important, and it will help somebody, a young person coming in. Some of the things that we went over, I think it really does help people. So thank you again, Cameron, for sharing your stories. And for everybody else, like and subscribe, share, and until next time.